Hi, this is Joseph. It's 6:29 p.m. on 8/9/2019 Friday. Going to just do a little bit of talking about SPY here. If you noticed, yesterday was a huge, big order flow agenda up day, and then today was a big move down, and then arranged around and closed on the neutral cloud. But I'm gonna add a few things on here and show you a few things that stood out today. So when you're in a big order flow agenda, this was just like a mindless buy algo setup. How do you know when it's going to run out of juice? What's a good way you can put a trend line on it. You can look for structure in there, but I just want to show you the value of a trend line and a point of control. This purple is the days developing point of control, and whenever it moves to price, that's a heads up. So you can be running those fixed range within each leg to get a sense of what's going on in each leg. But I'm just going to review the biggest point of control and how you can use it to know when momentum is closing, slowing, when things are consolidating and perhaps ready to turn or at least reach a decision point. So this is a strong move up, a very strong move up. Doesn't back off to 10:30 or 1:15 to neutral. It just keeps buying. So how do you know when it's going to stop? Well, you can keep running a trend line, and when a point of control runs to trend line, and then that violates, that's a heads up. And so you get one here, and on a 1 minute, that's very scalpable down there, especially in ES or NQ. But I'm just going to stay on this 15 minute that doesn't really get into all the moves like I normally do, but I'll just for overall. So then what does it do? It consolidates, goes horizontal. You can box that in. Notice point of control just goes sideways. It's a big consolidation. That means the new orders, the sells have come in. It's not all buys, and so they're duking it out in there. So you can lay in a trend line along the top, wherever you want in there. But anyway, let's just look at and see what happened in an overall view. So at some point you can lay in this next trend line here, and when it breaks there, it goes up, and what does it do? It runs out of gas, comes back down the next morning, breaks the trend line and breaks the point of control, and it does this move. And where does it go to when it does this move? Where is it going to run out of gas in this move? If I was to break that down, you'd see down to a quicker time frame, you'd see 5 waves down in there. I'm always looking for 5 waves and then exhaustion. And where does it stop at? It stops right at the opening 1 minute range. This is the big gravity. That's that's where the entire market got delivered on that day. This is where it got delivered on this day. So the whole history of the market's encapsulated in that, the adjusting of the orders in the first 1 minute of trading. And if you get used to plotting it, this is plotted automatically with one of my indicators, then you eventually will get used to seeing how often price returns to it and when it does, especially on a range day, tendency day, as opposed to, you might go back to that 5-10 times on a range day, which is 70-80% of the time. On a big order flow agenda buy day like this, it's not going to go back there. And as soon as you realize that, as it breaks out of the 1 minute range and doesn't return to it, it's a heads up that it's a big order flow agenda trend day. But anyway, so it comes back down. Where was I looking for it to stop, or at least pause right into that? Because these people up here, they'll sell, and they'll put a few buys around the opening one or the neutral cloud. If it keeps going, then they'll start looking at the wave structure. If it keeps going further, then they're going to put their buy tier in around this zone. So you can tell by these wicks, the buys were in there. Just in front of it is where they usually sit, and see how that pause there. If you go down to 1 minute, you'd see it bouncing along as the buy covers and the buy scalpers like me are in there, kind of scalping that, harvesting it back and forth until it does this break. So then you lay in a trend line down, and you look for that trend line to break along with the point of control break. So when this point of control moves to price, that's a heads up. That means a lot of new orders that means a lot of people are exiting. So there's new orders coming in down here, and they're getting out of some of the old orders. New orders come in, and then you look closely to see which side starts defending, which side starts pushing. So you can box that in. when the trend line breaks and the point of control moves to price, that's the heads up. Then when the trend line breaks, that's another big heads up. So you're looking close to see if all these exiting orders are going to then become the predominant, the longs, or are they then going to become the predominant push? And they do. They start pushing and they start building. And we were doing this in a 1 minute and a 3 minute and a 5 minute during the day, and we saw this whole thing develop. There's actually an inverted head and shoulders in there on a quicker chart. But anyway, then it goes up. Then it starts going up. Then what are you looking for? Well, you're looking for it to go at least to, it paused at the cells just below the neutral range, and eventually worked its way through there, pushed to the sell tier that sits just all the sell scalpers that sit just below the opening 1 minute range. That bounced back and forth. Eventually they pushed it down. But notice the trend line breaks there. The point of control moves to price. Slower on the trend line breaks. And then you've got this action here, which was on a lower time frame, back down to there. So then you can lay in trend lines along there. And what happens? All of a sudden, boom. You see what happens here. You don't see how it happened. You'd have to go to a 1, 3, or 5 minute chart to really see that. But what I wanted to really point out was the last move. And we were watching this in TradingView. So it puts on the move up. It was bouncing back and forth for a while between the neutral, at least QQQ is a better example, but it was bouncing back and forth between the sell tier just below the opening 1 minute range and the buy tier above the chart Mojo neutral cloud, which is 50% of the developed range in VWAP, until it finally broke through. But anyway, so then in the end of the day, we're starting to get this push here. A lot of people like to be out by 2:30. That's back there. Some other like to be out by 3:30 often. But anyway, it starts doing this push. So then how do you know what it's going to do toward the end of the day? Is it just going to really ramp up and keep going, or sell off? You don't know, but you can watch. Keep an eye on the point of control. Start laying in your trend line, and toward the end of the day, you could feel the juice coming out of it right there. It was looking to come back, and did come back and touch the middle of the opening 1 minute range, which is the big gravity, and it looked like it really wanted to let up there and kind of end around there. But no, when a point of control moved up, it broke the point of control, and the point of control capped it, and then the trend line broke. Notice those two candles right there. See how the new orders came in, the sells? These people were exiting, taking profits, and they just kept loading up right there and pushing down, and eventually there were a bunch of other sells up here, and they realized, you can see this on a DOM, you can see the sells are stacked up in a tier, and the buys, and they're kind of going back and forth, but at some point it starts moving down, and the sellers start becoming more dominant. And when the people see it, the up move slow down, and that happened, then all these people up here that need to sell to get out, they do a market order, and then when they market order to sell to price, it starts doing a bigger candle like that, and look what happened. It's cascaded down right to what? The buy tier that sits just above the neutral cloud. This is some classic stuff. Let's take a look at QQQ. Same thing. Trend line, point of control break. It only got up. See, it was battling for quite a while ever since that break right there. So it goes up to the sell tier just before the opening 1 minute range, comes back down to the buy tier just above the neutral cloud, bounces around, goes back up to the sell tier just below the opening 1 minute range, and then it starts trying to get up through it, but it never makes it past the middle of the opening 1 minute range. These orders that tier around something like that, there's some above, some right on the bottom line, and some below. So as price comes up, you can see how that hard push into the price, and then it slows down. The second that happened, the people that were up here started selling into it, and they did this, causes this run back down there. They didn't market order sell back down. So then they eventually do another run at it. And what happens is that it's not quite as many people in there on the subsequent approaches, because the people don't just sit there that are still want to get out or didn't get filled. There's some still in this area, these scalpers that like to scalp, but generally the orders move down and up. So they want to make sure they get filled, so they move some down. Some still want to get filled at a better level, so they move up. But anyway, so there was more moving down. They pushed it back down to the buy tier just above that. You see it got a little further into the buy tier. So then the next one does it back again, up to there, blah, blah, blah. Comes back down, and then at this point, it's going to get thinner. Not as many in there. So they move out of the way. The ones that moved down got filled, and the ones that are still around in that zone have moved higher. So you get that extra little push into that. But anyway, at that point, you're looking for the point of control to come in and see how it, there's also resistance at the top of this opening 1 minute range. So you're looking for point of control to come to price, then you're looking for trend line to break, and then you get something like that. That was a really sweet, quick, fast move in today. Anyway, that's a few things about trend lines and point of control. And I ran an extra point of control in this leg. You just go to indicators. You go to volume profile, fixed range, and you just drag it in the area that you want it to. I'll just drag it all the way out. So you can see it did this, came up there, and then actually dropped way down to price. That's what's happening. That's all the orders in there. It's really what you want to understand. Is just each leg is its own entity. Just like the whole day is its own entity, but then you also have what happens from 115 on. Notice where 115 is. It tends to wedge up at neutral at 115 and 1030, and that was right there. Right, I think we were watching it in Trading View. So when we're on the low of day back here, I'm going, well, I wonder if they're going to urge to neutral at 115, because that's when the lunchers come back, the big players that have been gone for lunch. They come back about 1. They do an assessment, and then they put a move on at 115. So often you get point of control and everything moving right to the middle of the neutral cloud, which is the 50% range in VWAP cloud. So there was lots of tendency. It kind of came back. You're looking for it to try to do that at 1030-ish and 115. Kind of came back a little early there, and then it was a pretty hard sell opening up in reaction to yesterday's up move. So there was some pressure there, but it did stop at yesterday's opening 1 minute range. So that was a good heads up that it was going to range from that point on. But anyway, there's just a few things to think about. Whenever there's a strong move, lay in a trend line, watch for point of control to come and break it, and that will show you there's a consolidation. If it starts defending back in the direction of the initial trend with a counter trend move, then you know it's the new orders are defending, they're exiting, and people are piling on. Anyway.